My name is Jennifer Hewins, and I'm the Assistant Director for Graduate Admissions here at RISD. And this session will be specifically for the MFA Textiles program, and we're joined by the Graduate Program Director, Anais. Anais, would like to jump in?
Good morning, everyone. Or it may not be morning from where you are. It might actually be night at this point. It's so nice that you're all joining this webinar. It's a little strange for us because we can't see you, and I'm very much a kind of like visual person and like to kind of make eye contact. So excuse me if it's a little awkward from my end. I'll just start with a little introduction about my background. I'm Anais Missakian. I'm the Graduate Program Director. I started my 36th year of full-time faculty at RISD this summer. So I have been in the program for a long time, more than half of, I would say, its modern version of the program, which I'll get into just a little bit in a second. I have been the department head for probably combined over 2 decades, been the graduate program director on and off, probably a combination or a total of 10 to 12 years. I've served as our Dean of Fine Arts for 3.5 years. I even served as the interim provost just a few years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So I've had a lot of roles at RISD and know a lot about the school, the institution, certainly the textile department and our programs and sort of where we sit in comparison and in collectiveness with other programs in the world. And so I'm very happy once we sort of move through some information to answer any of your questions. Just a little history about the textile department. The textile department at RISD is actually one of its founding departments. So 1877, one of its founding departments. It was really founded on sort of like ideas about serving local industry. So the two industries that were thriving at that time were the jewelry industry or the silver and metals and the textile industry. And so the program at the beginning had all sorts of more technical programs like textile engineering and textile production. And so there was a whole building just full of textile equipment. In the 50s, those programs, many of them or most of them dissolved. And what lasted was the design program, and also fine arts and textiles was sort of really emerging in the 50s, and that became part of the program. And to this day, our program, and I'm speaking about the undergrad program here, serves both people who want to be fine artists and designers. The graduate program, when we founded it, my colleague and I founded it many years ago. Maybe it's been 25 years, let's say, or 28 years. So it's not that old a program. We founded it knowing that there was a real gap in textile design education at the graduate level in this country and even internationally. So we decided to really focus on design for our graduate program, and knowing that there was a big gap there, but also knowing that we could really serve people because of our extensive facilities and our in-depth curriculum. So let me just read just a couple things. It's from the website, but I just want to go over them briefly so that you can kind of point your questions towards some of these things that maybe you've read. But just as a reminder, as an MFA candidate in textiles, you build on solid technical skills and proficient design process, engage in individual research, and develop a personal vision and understanding of design as an expression of a continually evolving culture. The 2-year MFA program in textiles focuses on the woven, knit, and print design of fabrics used for apparel and interior applications. Geared towards those with a background in textiles and academic and/or professional experiences in visual studies, the curricula helps you broaden and sharpen your skills, hone your artistic identity, and become well-versed in the technical and creative potential of the medium. The program also emphasizes studies in drawing and color, along with participation in graduate seminars as a means of building analytical and critical thinking skills. The first year enriches your creative background and helps you expand your skills, including the use of digital technology and design. The second year allows for more individual exploration of weaving, knitting, or surface design, with the final semester culminating in a thesis project that entails both studio work and written work. So that's a general overview. If you want to read the sort of our learning outcomes, we actually have just kind of revised them. They are up there on the website. There is some work on the website. So what can I tell you? We have extensive facilities. Our facilities are probably unmatched here in this country. Now, having said that, there are some technical programs that have really extensive facilities, but they're not as concerned with the sort of use of those facilities, use of that equipment, really state-of-the-art equipment to support individuals in really finding an individual voice, their own artistic identity. So we think of all of this learning that is technical, not as an end to a means, but really as a way to express oneself. So the skill learning always goes hand in hand with the development of one's content and context. And in a grad program that's so short, just the 2 years, the first year is spent really supporting one's technical abilities and knowledge. Of course, it again goes hand in hand with identifying content for your work, identifying context for your work. So again, they're always hand in hand. We don't believe in teaching skills just for the sake of teaching skills. You probably know that in textiles, the technical skills one can learn are endless. And so, just to give you an overview of what we have at the department, we have held tight to really believing that in-depth, disciplinary-based education is important in textiles to really be able to develop the craft of the medium to be able to then express oneself. Our facilities include electronic jacquard loom. It's actually brand new. We've had this one for just over a year. We had a jacquard loom for years, for actually the decades and decades, that came from the turn of not the last century, but the century before, the late 1800s. And our students worked on that loom for decades. When it became impossible to maintain the loom, as well as um, we used to have punch cards cut. So if you've ever seen old jacquard looms or old power looms, there was a chain of punch cards that accompanied, and those punch cards were the things that read the design that you made and the structures that you wanted to put into the fabric. And at one point, and it wasn't so long ago, I want to say maybe 30 years ago, we had one of our alums in town, and we were talking about how all the card cutters had passed away and there were no longer those skills, and what were we going to do? So we had a big push to buy a new jacquard loom. And then in the last 3 years, we decided to buy something even more advanced. And we have this brand new jacquard loom. It's very unusual at an academic institution to have this kind of equipment. Alongside that, in the weaving area, we have probably 50 floor looms at the department. We have 12 to 15 Dobby looms, which are the more kind of structural floor looms, but they do have a computer interface. And then we have the jacquard loom. In the knitting area, we have a machine, hand knitting machines, both single and double bed. And then we have two industrial machines made by Stoll, which is one of the big makers of industrial knitting equipment. We actually have a brand new Stoll knitting machine coming into the department this winter. where we actually have to break down a wall to even get the machine into the building. And this machine, which is called the Stoll ADF, can do fully fashioned garments as well as yardage. In the surface area, we have digital embroidery, we have digital printing, Mamaki machines, we have hand screen printing, and then we have a very proprietary software that we've had for years that students learn on that really help them through their design process of both print but also woven and knit fabrics. And then we have two dye labs, one that's dedicated, and this is pretty new, to natural dyes, and one that is dedicated to chemical dyes. We also have an indigo vat going, which is not a recent thing because we had one several years ago when we were working with the Silk Road project, Yo-Yo Ma's project. They were in residence at RISD for a while, and the textile department was heavily invested in that project. So we had indigo vats going at that time. So it kind of takes people the willingness to kind of care for those vats for them to really be able to live at the department. So that's in general our facilities, really extensive for a textile program. One does not have access to the equipment, or one isn't told, just figure it out. We have very structured courses that introduces students to the equipment. Once students learn the equipment, then they have access from there on to that level of equipment. Our industrial equipment are actually operated by technicians. And so students are sitting and standing side by side with a skilled technician in order to see their fabrics come to life. So that's something. Are there any questions in the chat so far? I feel like I don't want to just keep on.
That's totally fine. And I do have some questions queued up too while we wait for some more to come in.
Okay.
The first question that we have is, what do some study abroad opportunities look like specifically for textile students?
Okay, that's a good question. So we don't have study abroad opportunities during the regular semesters. We see the 2 years as a very condensed time for what we really want the students to get from the program. Having said that, there are winter session travel courses, and there have been some grad students who have taken advantage of those over the years. But I have to say, even winter sessions, our grad students tend to want to be on campus making their work. So there isn't to be honest with you, there isn't that much of international opportunity or even desire once in the program. Is there any follow-up to that, though? I'm giving a somewhat vague answer, but
No problem. We'll see if there's a follow-up. But we have
okay.
another question that came in. This person is particularly interested in the fashion side of textiles, but they've noticed that many students seem to focus more on interior design. What are the typical outcomes for graduates of the Masters in Textiles program in terms of career paths, entrepreneurship, or academia?
Okay, very good. So all of the above. So I'll cover academia first. We don't set out to have a program that teaches teaching. It's really done through modeling. One of the things that all of our grad students has is access to many, anywhere from 6 to 8 faculty members during their time. And so syllabi are shared, faculty have different styles of teaching, different styles of pacing, of course, different expectations, and that's really how graduate students learn about teaching. In the second winter session, all of our grad students have an opportunity, if they want, to teach a winter session course. This year, 5 of our 6 in the second year are teaching. 2 are co-teaching a fabric silkscreen course, 2 are co-teaching a knitting course, and 1 of our grad students is teaching a weaving course. These are all basic kind of core curricula type classes. Although we didn't plan to sort of think about our curriculum as a way to move into academia, we have had a surprising number of our alums from the graduate program go on to teach. So, at one point I had it at 25% of all our alums ended up in academia. As far as design and both those applications that you mentioned, so both architectural applications and um, apparel applications, I would say we have students that, or classes that across the board are probably half and half. And in general, um, as far as our undergrads go, a lot of our seniors end up doing apparel related work. What I will say is to really see the final work, I would encourage everybody to look at the thesis books in the library. They're under the digital commons. And under the digital commons, you can put both, keywords, and you can write in textiles. Then you can also add apparel or fashion if you're interested in seeing those books. Other keywords would obviously be architecture, interiors. Other keywords might be technology that you might put in. And so, um, yeah, our students have gone on to work for high performance. It's so broad now. It used to be much more clear the kinds of fields our alums in the grad program would go off to. So it's academia, it's high performance, it's technology, Apple, Google, it's more traditional fashion houses, a more traditional interior textile places, but we also have people very interested in starting their own small labels, and we have good examples of that that come out of our program, both undergrads and graduates.
Perfect. All right, I can help answer this question, and feel free to chime in, Anais. Are there opportunities for graduate assistantships, and will it cover my full tuition? And do I need to submit the GRE? First, I'll start with the GRE. It's not required for any of our graduate degree programs. In regard to it's very um, be nice for sure it's
Is that me or you?
put in if we're both free, that would be helpful to know. Um, there. Oh, it looks like maybe it was my internet that got a little bit wonky. Sorry about
Oh,
that.
okay, good.
Yesterday, Woods Gary lost internet completely, and then the fire alarm went off during a webinar. So it was a little crazy. Just let me know if I'm cutting out again. In regard to the assistantships, these vary from program to program. Every department manages the assistantship a little bit differently. If I recall, MFA Textiles does award assistantships at the point of application. These amounts will not cover full tuition. And generally, the awards don't cover the cost of attendance. But what I can say is that over 90% of grads received awards of some amount last year. These are in the form of fellowships and assistantships, and this includes international and domestic students. So the important thing will be to fill out the RISD institutional financial aid form that's in your applicant status portal. That signals to us that you want to be considered for aid. And again, both US and international students should fill that out. Anything to add about how assistantships work, Anais?
Well, just that you'll for domestic students, you'll be filling out the FAFSA. So that is also considered. And if you think you want any kind of support, you really want to fill out both the FAFSA and the form that Jennifer is talking about, which is more of an internal form. And that form really was developed because international students weren't able to fill out a, federal form. So there was really not great understanding of what the need might be So it's a form that makes it clear what one's need is. I will say, so the fellowship is basically scholarship. It's money that is put towards tuition. And um, it's sort of like, I'm not sure exactly what to say, but we've supported people with 25% of tuition or 50% of tuition, all the way up to very, very, very rarely full tuition. There is something called, and you would see it online, so I'll just talk about that a little, the presidential, the SPF. It is called the Society of Presidential Fellows. There are about 6 or 7 of those that are awarded each year. You don't have to apply for it. If someone applies into any of the programs at RISD, and you don't have to show interest, really, the GPDs will nominate people that seem to kind of fulfill some of the goals of the SPF award. And so that's how that happens. The so that's fellowship. It's just money put towards tuition each year. What we promise the first year will be honored the second year, so people don't have to reapply for this kind of financial aid. The assistantship are basically jobs at the department or jobs on campus, and depending on the amount that is awarded, it's calculated hourly across the board, across the RISD programs. A job in our program in the first year will be lab support. So kind of supporting some of the labs, getting to know the labs. And in the second year, it's teaching support. So everyone has the opportunity to be a teaching assistant in the second year.
Fantastic. Thank you. And we also did a webinar with Student Financial Services that took a deep dive into how to support your grad study here. If you send me an email at admissions@risd.edu, I'm happy to share that recording with you.
Yeah.
All right, we have a great question that came into the chat. Could you speak to the expectations or requirements around summer work between the first and second years?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So oftentimes our grad students will do internships in the summer. Those internships can be taken for credit. Sometimes companies will also pay, but some companies don't pay as long as a student is getting credit. They don't necessarily have to pay. There is no expectation of work um, for the program during the summer. So one doesn't have to do an assistantship. There's no expectations of work. There are some summer research projects that students do that are presented on the very first week, but they go hand in hand with wherever someone might be or whatever someone might be doing. It's just basic research that a lot of us do to find inspiration or to think about what's going on in the world. I would say that it's not a huge lift, but it is something that really supports the beginning of students' work in the fall semester. So yeah, that being said, it's pretty much one's own summer. So there's only really one summer, and it's either students are doing internships or some students have to work to kind of help support um, paying for the education. So they might go back to doing consulting work or freelance work, but we don't really get involved. There are some jobs at the department, of course, if students do want to stay on campus. And that's one way to have access to all the facilities. Our grad students do have access to their studios between the first and second year. So someone chooses to stay on campus and work in their studio, their grad students are totally free to do so. Undergrads don't have that access in the summer. Yeah, I think that's about it. There are some opportunities at the museum. There are other opportunities at some of the other resources on campus during the summer too.
Fantastic. Great. Um, if you could speak to this, what kind of support does RISD provide to help students secure work after completing the program?
Yeah, so we have a really active alumni and career services office, and they organize portfolio reviews. They organize reviews on campus, virtual portfolio reviews. As far as the department goes, again, oftentimes people will do internships. Those can lead to employment. We don't guarantee employment, but I will tell you that one is very prepared for employment going through our 2-year program. And so there's strong connections to the field. We have very strong connections to the industry. Our alums are our greatest industry network. And so we will always put our grad students in touch with alums that are doing similar work or in a similar context that a student is interested. For instance, just last week, I put one of our current first year students in touch with a current recent alum who is doing very similar work to what one of our current students wants to do. So they're in conversation now. That conversation is going to continue. She actually offered the current student an internship this winter. So there's a lot of that goes on. Um, but again, it's really through our alums and through our own industry context that we're very generous as a faculty. So we are always going to help people make connections. It's really up to then a student to go from the connection to actually it turning into something. And so then, of course, companies will come to the alumni office, or sometimes people will write me and say, I have an opening. Can you recommend anyone? So it comes through multiple ways, but again, we can't guarantee, but through our lectures and our field trips and our visitors and our alums, there's a very rich network to take advantage of.
Fantastic. And I just dropped a link in the chat. We will be having a session with Kevin Jankowski, the director for the Career Center, later today. So if it works for your schedule, please feel free to sign up for that. And I will add that the Career Center will continue helping students even after you graduate. So they remain a resource to you as alumni.
And
Well,
so do the faculty. By the way, I mean, I
great.
just wrote a Fulbright recommendation, or just recently, and the grad student alum got the Fulbright, so she's in the Azores, and now we had a Zoom meeting last week to talk about what she's doing and just for ideas, and this goes on all the time where, I might hear from someone who graduated 10 years ago who wants to teach and is applying, and we keep in contact, and we support our alums throughout their lives and careers.
Fantastic. Right. This is an application question, specifically the portfolio. Can
Mhm.
you explain in more in depth what it is exactly that Textiles is looking for? Are they allowed to include short labels or captions? And I'll chime in here. If you haven't already, I encourage you to start your application and get into Slide Room. Slide Room is the platform that you will use to submit your portfolio for the application. In there, you can include things like captions and a brief description for your work. Those are very much allowed. There's other questions in there, like medium and size, that help whoever's reviewing the portfolio get a full understanding of what they're looking at. But is there anything else that you want to add to that?
There's a ton I want to add to this. So we would like to see one image per page. We're not supportive of, putting 25 images on one page. We can't really see them well. It's just not serving anyone. We want to see one image per page. If you want to show a detail, you might use a second image to do that, or if you can incorporate it somehow. As you probably know, with textiles, it's sometimes the details are really, really important. Um, so one image per page. select your images carefully, make sure they're very good, high quality images of your work. Um, the question of does the portfolio have to be all textiles? It doesn't. For those people who are coming from painting backgrounds or architecture backgrounds or graphic design backgrounds, we are happy to see your work from other disciplines. We certainly want to see your highest level work to date. And so that can include textiles, but it might also include a lot of other things, or a lot of other disciplinary work. So um, I do think it's important to state again that we're a design-oriented program, so we want to see how you think as a designer. If you are a fine artist and you're really interested in kind of the intersection between fine arts and design, that will come out in your statement, but it might also come out in your work. So my biggest recommendation is not to put multiple images on one slide. If people think that it's gonna like, then you're gonna have more work to show. In fact, it shows an editing issue, where someone hasn't edited down their work to kind of present or put their best foot forward. As far as captions go, the captions are good in the area that has been specified for that, which is kind of not in the image, but to the side of the image. Don't design your pages like these are images of work. We're not necessarily looking for any kind of design of pages that includes one's work. If you want to show your work in context, so on a dress form or on a body, that should be the image of that work. Again, maybe with a detail.
Fantastic. We reiterate this over and over again in all of our admissions prep sessions. And we'll have one next Tuesday as well. This will be hosted by me and a colleague that in admissions. We go through the actual mechanics of actually setting up your slide room portfolio, what it looks like for you, what it looks like for the reviewer. So you can see, like when we say like don't put more than one image on a slide, the reviewer can't zoom in slide room. So you're not doing yourself a justice by putting more than one image on a slide. So I encourage you to sign up for that session. And we have recordings of past sessions as well.
Now, let's just talk about the statement a little because that's the other extremely important part of the application. Not that your former academic record isn't important, but we put a lot of emphasis on the work and on the statement when we're doing our reviews. It's really important in the statement. We don't, everyone that's gotten to this point has some sort of maybe long history of drawing as a child, but as a grad student applicant, it's really important to talk about where you are, what you are thinking. We don't want to know necessarily the work you're going to make, but we want to know how you've thought about your recent work. We want to know who kind of you look to, what you think about, what you watch, what inspires you. Is it film? Is it literary examples? The designers and the artists you might think about. It's not just an idea about listing, but really why those maybe artists and designers or films connect to your work, connect to your ideas, connect to what it is that you're interested in. That's really important for us to get an idea of really just how you think. Because along with sort of like the kind of rigors of making and rigors of creating visual material things, it's also really important to have a kind of intellectual curiosity um, in sort of like what you will find as resources and inspiration. And so it's really important to include those things in the written statement. And not necessarily include like where you started, as a child, or, it's really important to tell us where you are now.
We had a faculty panel, and it was funny. One of the GPDs said, please don't start your statement off with when I was a child.
Yeah. Unless, listen,
Yeah,
Sometimes, maybe once in a blue moon, it's really relevant. So I
they
don't
said that
love
too. Yeah,
hard, fast rules, but
yeah. Perfect. And continuing on with the portfolio, we have another one.
okay.
How many projects do you recommend including in the portfolio? Do you prefer to see only final outcomes, or is it recommended to include parts of the creative process?
Yeah, that's a good example. And I feel like a lot of people that do this multiple images on the screen are wanting to show a lot of process along with the work. And we love to see process, but I think it's really important to think about the balancing of the process versus the work. I don't think you should come up with a formula for your portfolio, but if you've got 20 slides to work with and the process was really critical to the end result and you really want to demonstrate that, maybe you choose a few projects where you show that on another slide, and then show the work or vice versa. But again, I think like you have to decide whether using a slide for process is more valuable than using the slide for an image of another piece. And of course, your background is going to dictate some of the form that your portfolio takes. If you're a painter versus maybe someone coming from an architectural background, and we have applicants to our grad program from so many different visual fields. It's really hard to kind of articulate clearly exactly what we're expecting, because of the form that different fields' final results take. So if it's architecture, we're never looking at a real building, let's say. We might be looking at some process and the final drawings. But for someone who has been in textiles, it's critical that we really experience the textile as best as we can in a photographic work, right? Because it's not so easy sometimes to photograph textiles.
Perfect. This question is more with studio practice and making. Can you talk more about the kinds of projects that are assigned and explored in the studios?
Yeah, so very good question. So in the first year, well, let me just first give you a little bit of the format of the curriculum. But before I do that, I just want to explain something further about the statement. We basically have a program that has 6 students in the first year and 6 students in the second year. It's a very it's a small program as programs go. Within that, we really ask that students let us know as they're applying what area of textiles they are focused on. So, just to talk about the technical tracks, there's surface, there's knitting, there's weaving. There's no way in a graduate program to be able to learn everything. We need people to focus. The trajectory of the courses, the more technical courses where students learn the skills, happens over multiple semesters. And so we accept students or we review students based on their area of interest. And I want to make that really clear so that when you apply, it becomes really clear which of those 3 tracks you're interested in. With those tracks comes a series of courses in the first year that basically are following undergraduate level courses. So you might be in a course like a weaving course with a senior, for instance, if you're taking Jacquard. Um, Within those courses, there are assignments and prompts, and our graduate students follow those. But I just want to say, with the caveat, that there is a course that happens every fall that's called Textile Seminar. It's a graduate level course in our department, and it gathers all 12 graduate students. And in that course, both first and second year in the fall, our students take that. So the second year, you're kind of repeating in some ways the course that you took in the first year becomes much more pointed towards the thesis. What we look at in those two, in that course, is there's research projects, and then there's an in-depth look at color, and there's an in-depth look at pattern, which is really something that we claim as something very specific to textiles. The courses that anyone is following to kind of gain some of the technical skills, like the weaving course I was talking about, whatever the context and content is for the textile seminar course is what the work being done in any kind of other class is being put towards, if that makes sense. So it's very individually focused, it's very individually based. We never tell students what ideas they're working with or what the themes are or any of that. It's always self-driven. And then the learning that happens is always with that in mind, if that makes sense. But technically, there may be very specific things that people are assigned to do, but that's just the technical.
Fantastic. Great. We still have some time, so feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A. I do have some queued up, Anais.
Sure.
How flexible is the curriculum for students who want to explore cross-disciplinary methods?
Yeah. Okay. Another really good question. So the way that we think about we're textiles is at the intersection of so many different fields, and we recognize that, and we're actually excited about that. We do have some courses that actually within our own curriculum that kind of direct themselves towards that. So we've had a textiles into furniture class, which is a collaboration with furniture for many years. And so that's going. So any given year, we'll have a couple of collaborative courses. This semester in the spring, we have a collaborative course with architecture. Actually, somebody that graduated from our undergrad program many years ago then went on to get her master's in architecture at MIT, who is now teaching this course, this collaborative course. I teach a course, or I co-teach a course called Computing Fabrics, which is a collaborative course that takes place at MIT with my close colleague in material science at MIT. So there are these opportunities. But then there are also all of these other opportunities where students who kind of can really identify their own interests, their own kind of intersection for their work, will then take classes in other areas. So just to kind of explain the curriculum a little bit, our grad students are required to take 3 non-textile based courses during their 2 years. Also take 3 seminar-based courses that are not in textiles in their 2 years. So 6 of the courses that a grad student will take will be outside of textiles. And that's where those kind of interdisciplinary things can happen, in addition to the courses that we offer.
Fantastic. Got another question that came in. This person visited the RISD Museum and noticed its extensive textile holdings. Is there any integration with the museum or access to its textiles collection as a resource for students in the program?
Yeah. So yeah, the collection's incredible. It's kind of not the best collection in the country, but it's certainly up there, very high to the Met and to the MFA at Boston. A lot of the collection was due to one of our founders really handing over really massive textile collections to the museum, which started the Asian textile collection at the museum. We are very fortunate at our department in that we built very close collaborative ties to the curators of costume and textiles. In fact, we have run multiple courses with the museum over, I would say, 15 years. We had a project called Designing Traditions. We had coursework around the idea of repair, which was also a collaboration with apparel and textiles with the museum. I was just talking to the chief curator, who's a very close friend also, because of our work over the years, that we need to reinstigate the Designing Traditions project. In addition to kind of very collaborative projects that we've done with actually the Costume and Textiles offers hours. It used to be every Friday, now it's Wednesdays. And so a student can write the curator, say, I'm interested in seeing this work or this category of work or this piece. And they'll go to those open hours to experience the work that they want to experience.
Fantastic. Great. And then I think we have time for one more question.
Okay.
How is critique structured within the department? And how do critiques integrate perspectives from other disciplines?
Okay. Yeah. So it's a good question. I think the way I can best answer this question is really, and I mentioned this. So during the 2 years, a grad student might have access or experience the teaching of 6 to 10 different faculty members. And with that comes different perspectives, different expertise, different professional sort of perspectives from their own professional practice, artistic practice or design practice. And also what comes with that are different critique structures and critique methods and critique I would say, approaches. So there isn't a singular critique approach at our department. In fact, in my teaching of the grads this semester, I've tested out 3 or 4 different approaches to critique so that they're not just presenting their work and hearing feedback, but they're giving written feedback to each other, or there's blind reads versus a student presenting. And I test out different ones throughout the semester so that students who are uncomfortable with one approach might find alignment with another, but also just to demonstrate that there's not one way of critiquing work.
Fantastic. Thank you, Anais.
Having said that, there are weekly critiques in all of the classes, so sometimes it feels very critique heavy for some students.
That's great. Well, I think that will do it. There's no more questions in the Q&A. But if you think of anything afterwards, I'm sure this was generating a lot of thoughts from people. If you think of something afterwards, feel free to email us at admissions@risd.edu. If I can't answer your question, it's textile specific, I will direct it to Anais, and we'll get back to you as quickly as possible. This was tremendous. Big thanks.
You're very welcome. I just want to say one more thing. Sometimes in these open houses, there are students, but I find it much more useful for you to write me, and I can put you in touch with a student that is somewhat aligned with your questions and all of that. So anytime you want to reach out, you want to talk to a student through email or, maybe set up a call, just feel free. I think you can learn the most from the students who are currently in the department, even more than you might learn from me. I think you can learn from them what it feels like to be in the program and questions that you might not be kind of comfortable asking me. You can usually ask a current student freely. So please reach out.
Fantastic. Thank you, Anais. Appreciate that. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. I look forward to seeing you at some of our other sessions later today and this week. If there's anything you need, just email us at admissions@risd.edu. This session was recorded, so if you want a copy of that recording, we'll be sharing the YouTube playlist for the open house to everybody who's registered. But with that, thank you so much, Anais. I hope you have a great day.
Thanks,
And
everybody.
thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.